family, welcome to a haunted house. I'm Star, and on this channel I make content to empower others to pursue holistic wealth through real estate, financial hacks, and at-home inspiration. If you have not done so, please subscribe to this channel below and give this video a like if you like it. In today's video, I am going to be telling a story about how me and my husband purchased our brand new home. We just purchased a new construction home here in the Atlanta area about a month ago, and at the time it was about 3 months into our marriage, after we had no intention of buying a new home within the first year of our marriage, or maybe not even the first few years of our marriage. During our engagement process, we never really talked about the possibility of buying a new home. We already knew that I had purchased a home about 3 years ago, and so our plan was just to move into the house I already owned. Finding a place to live wasn't something we had to worry about during our wedding planning process. Also, when I initially purchased my home, I obtained down payment assistance, and I had an affordability period of 5 years, meaning that if I decided to move, to sell my home, or to get any equity out of my home in that 5-year period, then I would have to pay back the full amount of my down payment assistance. And since I had no intention of paying back my down payment assistance, I didn't really consider the option of moving away from my home within the first 5 years of me living there. One thing we did agree on was doing a full renovation of our house at the time, because I had done a lot of house hacking over the years. I had a lot of traffic in and out of my home, which resulted in a lot of wear and tear. So we decided that we'd do a renovation to make the house feel like a home for both of us. We did plan to buy another rental property potentially at the latter half of the year of a 2020 Q3 or Q4 after analyzing our other goals and seeing how much progress we made against them. So we started the renovation process at the top of the year, and one morning I was just looking at properties on Zillow. I was looking at townhomes in our area for potential rental properties for the latter half of the year. Wasn't looking for anything in particular, but just wanting to know what the market was like, how much cash we might need to have later on to be able to pull the trigger on buying that rental property. I was sending my husband links to the properties I was looking at, and as he was looking at these links, he was thinking, what if we decided to move into one of them? So one morning he poked his head in our room. He was like, hey, if you wouldn't mind, I would definitely be open to moving. And I was in shock because I never knew that he actually wanted to move, although I did realize that we never really made space for that to really be on the table because we had so much going on. We were planning a wedding, we already owned a house, so we just assumed that we would move in to the house. And we did discuss potentially doing a custom build like later on down the line, and that we would use like the first few years of our marriage to save money for our custom built home. So I was definitely surprised when he told me that he was wanting to move, or at least open to the idea of moving. And I actually was open as well, but I had never really given it any thought given our current circumstances. So that day I jumped back into looking at Zillow and looking at the properties available in our area, and I kept sending David links. I sent him a link to one community that we both thought would be a good fit for both of us to live in. So that day when he got home from work, we went over to that property to look at their model homes. So they had a few different floor plans at this community, but they only had models for one of the floor plans, which was the smaller floor plan out of the ones that we were looking at. So we looked at this model, and David actually fell in love with it. He told me that he could really see himself moving, and like going into that property made him really want to move. But the thing was, I didn't like it. I thought that it was definitely too small for us, especially since we were hoping to get something that we could grow into later on. And I didn't want us to purchase something that was far more pricey than what we already had, that we would end up having to move out from in the future if we decided to start a family, then once our family began to grow. So I definitely wasn't interested in that floor plan. I was interested in another floor plan that the community offered, but they didn't have any models at that community. So we went to another community that was owned by that national builder that actually did have a model home of the floor plan, the bigger floor plan that I liked, and I still liked it. The problem was David didn't like it. Well, it wasn't that he didn't like it, he really didn't like the price, and he is all about the bottom line. So So although the starting price for the floor plan that I liked, the bigger floor plan, was within our budget, we knew that once we started adding on the additional fees that come with new construction, that it would end up being over our budget. If you know anything about new construction, you know that the starting price is never anywhere near what you will actually end up paying for that property, because they'll add on a lot premium, and then you have to pay for all your additional upgrades and any fees that come with, if you have like an in unit or whatever, they have all these additional fees that you have to pay that adds on to the list price of your home, or the final price of your home. So typically your final price ends up being at least like $50,000 more than the starting price for that home. Although I really liked that floor plan, I agree that it would have probably ended up being more expensive than what we were looking for at that time. So I actually was prepared to wait some more till we found something that we both liked that was in our budget. Because David has seen a house that he really pictured himself in, he wanted to keep looking because he was really like engaged in the idea of actually moving at this point. So we went to go see maybe like the following weekend, we went to go see another community, another new construction community that was in the same county that we were hoping to move to. And this time we both agreed that the floor plan there was too small for us. We were in there and it's like, this feels apartment-like. It just doesn't feel like what we were hoping for. We knew that it was too small for us already, and we didn't even have any children yet. So we were both in agreement that we didn't like that one. And on a whim, we went to go see a single family home that we had on our list that wasn't too far from the one that we were looking at. So because David's a realtor, we were able to just pull up to the other house that we were looking at to see what that house is offering. And this is actually the only single family home that we were looking at. All the other properties that we were looking at were townhomes. For some reason, we were caught up in the idea of having a townhome, maybe because that was what we were initially eyeing for rental property. And when we started to see the new construction townhomes in our area, we got kind of caught up in the idea of getting a townhome, that we kind of like pushed away the idea of having a single family home. So we went to this single family home and we both liked it. We walked in, it was very nice. We both loved it. We both could see ourselves there, and the price was comparable to the cost of the townhomes that were also in the area. We were like, wow, we could have this townhouse, but we could also have this single family home that has a backyard, and it's actually something that we could grow into, and it's more square footage than all of the townhouses that we have seen so far. So we decided that since we both loved it, and this was the first time that we both equally liked a property, then maybe we should consider putting in an offer on it. So getting back into the car, David called the realtor, and the realtor informed us that the house was now under contract. We were so disappointed, but the realtor did say that there was one more property left next door. It was still under construction. Both houses were actually still under construction, but the one next door wasn't as done as the one that we were walking into, and he said that one was still active on the market. So and that one was the exact same floor plan as the one that we fell in love with, and it was right next door. It has the same lot size and everything, but I did like the exterior better on the one that we initially saw, but everything else was pretty much exactly the same. But one thing though, we were already in the renovation loan process, and so because of how quickly the home that we liked had gone under contract, we were thinking that we probably wasn't going to have enough time to put in an offer on the other home next door, because we were under the impression that we had to close on our renovation loan before putting in an offer on this home. So we kind of like gave up on the house, although we both loved it, because we didn't think that the timing would work, because there was only one house in that community left. So we began looking at custom builders. We were already meeting with contractors for our renovation loans. We were getting bids for our full renovation that we were doing on our current home. So when we would meet with those contractors, we would ask them about the possibility of doing a custom build with them, because most of the contractors that we were talking to also built homes as well. And so we were doing that to get pricing per square footage about how much it would cost to build the house that we wanted. And then at the same time, we were looking at house plans that fit into our square footage. And we also started to look at land lots in our area or land lots in the area that we were looking to move to kind of compare the price and the process of getting a custom build to either getting a new construction built or this new construction that was already almost done that we both loved. What we found was that the area that we wanted to build in was very expensive. The land lots in that area were multiple times the amount that an average person would think they would pay for a land lot. And then when you look at land lots, you also have like vacant land lots versus land lots that were not developed yet. And so for those that were not developed yet or that will require additional prep, that's also additional cost that you have to tack on to your final cost before you can even start the building process. So not only was the price potentially going to be more, but also it was going to take at least 6 months to build a new house. And we also had to move out of our current home because we had to start a full renovation and we couldn't live there doing the full renovation. So that means that if we decided to do a custom build, then we would be displaced for a time and we would have to find a third place to live and either decide if we're going to just live in that third place until the final house is built, or are we going to move back into the old house when the renovations are done and then move again, which means that we're moving like 3 times. And the idea of being displaced for potentially 6 months and having to pay more for a new home just like didn't sound appealing anymore. So we kind of like gave up on the idea of doing a custom build, especially under the circumstances since we were already committed to doing a renovation on our current property. So with that new information, we decided that it was worth a shot to try to figure out if we could put in an offer on the house that we already loved, that we knew that we could get into within a month, and we didn't have to find a third place to live, and it was within our budget. So we ended up putting our heads together to get creative about how we can do these 2 loans at the same time, because if anybody knows anything about underwriting, trying to close 2 loans at the same time is a red flag to underwriters. So long story short, we figured out a way to close on both loans. So now here we are, closing both loans. They closed about 2 weeks apart from one another. From us deciding that we were open to looking for a new home and actually going under contract for our new home, all of that happened within 2 weeks from each other. So we were moving super quickly, we were thinking quickly on our feet and doing some like real-time problem solving to get into the house that we really wanted, that we knew was a good deal and that would be good for our future family in a short amount of time. Because we were moving so fast and we were doing something that we didn't know would work, we actually didn't really tell anybody. None of our family and friends knew that we were even open or looking to move into a new home until we actually closed on our new home. We sent people pictures like, hey, we just closed, new house, who this, all of that. And our family was super surprised and like, why didn't you tell us? But really the only reason we didn't tell anybody is because we didn't know if the things that we were trying was going to work, and we were moving so quickly, and we didn't want to jinx ourselves if what we were trying was going to fail. So our plan was to let's just see if we can make it work, and if it works, we'll tell everybody, invite everybody over. But if not, then we already had a plan to stay where we were and to renovate anyways. So it's not like we were going to be homeless or anything if our plans didn't work. So in the end, we actually did what we said we were going to do when we planned to get another investment property this year. We just did it a lot earlier than what we intended. We said that we would get an additional rental property in Q3 or Q4 of 2020, but we ended up doing it in Q1 of 2020 in that we turned our existing home into a rental property and then bought another home for ourselves. So essentially we still were on par with our goals, but we just did it in a completely different way than we imagined because an opportunity presented itself and we were able to take advantage of it. So the moral of this story is that Position, agility, and creativity can help you to take advantage of opportunities as they come. The reality is that in life, we can't predict the opportunities that will fall in our lap, so we have to be in the right position to be able to take advantage of them. So if you want to know more about what I mean by this, please stay tuned for a later video I'll make about these 3 characteristics that I think are essential to wealth building. If you found this video helpful at all, or if you enjoyed it, please give it a like. And if you have not done so already, please subscribe to this channel for more content. And until next time, love, Star.